तो शुरू करें। अभी 2-4 मिनट हैं आपके हिसाब से। क्या चीज?
कल वाला मीटिंग आप देखना चाहते?
वही बेचा ना आपने।
कितने बजे रखी है आपने?
ये
स्लो है क्या?
यहाँ से एडमिट ऑल आ रही है ना, कर दूँ स्टार्ट में?
हाँ
ये वो एडमिट ना चला है। हाँ हाँ पासवर्ड। हाँ क्या ना ना वो दूसरा रन कर देगा। चलिए ना वो हमारे भी हमने कौन से जरूरत नहीं। क्या है अपने इसका एडमिट बैलेंस
किसका?
मीटिंग आईडी चाहिए, क्या चाहिए?
आप इससे चला रहे हो या उससे चला रहे हो? ये किससे चला रहे हो बेटा? क्यों ये वाईफाई किससे चल रहा है?
सवाल सत्य प्रकाश
बाकी लोग नहीं आए क्या?
हाँ नहीं सत्य
स्क्रीन को कर दो।
तो इस बिल को
माउस ले रहे हैं आप? बैठिए कर लो ना बैठिए करो। मैं बैठिए करो। अभी क्या लो?
क्या ठीक है
शुरू करूंगा
जी सर।
अभी 2 मिनट के बाद You can start
दो मिनट हो गए। वेलकम कर लीजिए।
Right at the outset, I welcome you all to this meeting. We have still 2-3 minutes left before 12 o'clock. So I'll wait for that time to come.
Is it audible to all of you, please? Please raise your hand.
If it is not audible, please raise your hands. Oh, it's not. Dua Sahab, are you able to hear us? Okay, thank you. One, two, three, four, 4, 8, 7,
स्क्रीन को थोड़ा खड़ा करके
10 hands. Roughly 10. कितने हैं?
अभी आ रहे हैं।
Okay. We start sharp at 12. So what's the time?
बज गए 12
Okay. Good morning to every one of you. Today we have assembled to pay tribute to Professor S K Joshi, who left for his heavenly abode on 15th of May. Professor Joshi started his life journey in 1935 from a small village in the UP Hill district, Nainital, now in Uttarakhand. He was a brilliant student and went to study at the prestigious Allahabad University, from where he obtained PhD in physics in 1962, specializing in solid-state physics. In 1967, he joined the Roorkee University, practically setting up the physics department there as a research department. And on academic front, he introduced that time's novel area of research in this department, such as disordered systems, high temperature superconductivity, surface states, and various others. In 1986, he became director of National Physical Laboratory, from where he took over as Director General of Council of Scientific and Industrial Research in 1991. He was a fellow of all 3 academies of sciences and also the president of each of them. In addition, he held the president's position of the Indian Physics Association, Indian Science Congress, and Material Research Society of India. He was also a fellow of the Third World Academy of Sciences and the Russian Science Academy. His academic contributions were recognized as Bhatnagar Award in 1974, followed by Gold Prize, Meghna Shah Award, Ficky Award, and many more. He was awarded Padma Shri and later Padma Bhushan in 2003. Professor Joshi had been a builder of institutions, or in his capacity as apex position, or as an advisor. Today we have a number of distinguished persons belonging to these institutes, which he had nurtured and assisted to thrive. We shall hear them now, paying tribute to this great son of India. I would now invite K. Dharamve to conduct this session. At the end of the session, I will give my personal reminiscences and experience in dealing with him as the chairman of Board of Governors of IIT Roorkee, of which I was a member at the end of the session. Thank you very much, and I request Professor Dharamve to conduct the session.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us. May I now request Professor K. Pathak to say a few words in honor of Professor Joshi. Professor Pathak. Unmute kar do.
हेलो,
Yes.
मेरी आवाज जा रही है?
Ji. Yes.
Okay. Yesterday we gathered to offer our homage to Professor Joshi and a historical sketch-up about his education and achievements and awards and honors have been already described. So I will skip that point. I will make my personal reminiscences with Professor Joshi. Professor Joshi was my teacher at Allahabad University in MSc Physics class. He was teaching classical mechanics. And I still recall the method of his teaching, that he will work it out every steps which he was teaching from the gold standard classical mechanics. And so that way I have learned my physics from Professor Joshi at a very early stage. After that, I joined IIT Kanpur, and from Kanpur, my hometown was Allahabad. So I used to often go to Allahabad, and then I visit his laboratory. And as soon as I will reach his laboratory, Professor Joshi will ask his student K.C. Sharma that please take him for the lunch and dinner, whatever time it was. And he was very courteous, and there was no difference dealing with the students. And as he was a teacher, he was a teacher, and I was just a student, and it was only 1 year's gap. He was treating very closely. I remember, very affectionate. So since those days, I have been associated with Professor Joshi, and after my PhD, I went other places, and after joining Punjab University, I again came into contact with Professor Joshi at the University of Roorkee, where he was a professor and head of department. And before that, he had gone to Louisiana, the University of California, with I think this conductivity person, Kalave, I think, and he wrote a very famous article on solid state physics volume, Turnbull series, and Allahabad, when I used to meet him, he was working on the lattice dynamics. Although his PhD was in the experimental physics, X-ray diffraction, and he determined some crystal structure at that time, crystal structure. But soon he left to the theoretical physics, left the area in the theoretical physics, and gave a model which was known as P.K. Sharma and S K Joshi model. Became very popular to explain the neutron scattering observation. As you will recall that in late 60s and 60s, era was neutron scattering. Neutron scattering era was there. So a lot of experiments were coming out. So he used to use his Born-Coulomb theory, Born-Force model, to explain the phonon spectrum by his model. He was a very successful model. So in fact, he has credit of summarizing the theoretical condensed matter physics up to the time of the article was written. He was the person who summarized all the theoretical work done in India on the theoretical condensed matter physics, mostly the lattice dynamics. And Professor Radha Gopal took the part of providing the microscopic basis of lattice dynamics. And that article contains the models worked out in India, you see. And Radha Gopal provided the many-body concepts and basic many-body theory approach to understand the dynamics of the atoms in the crystal. So he has made a very, I think, distinct contribution, for which he was awarded Vatumul Award in those days, and that was great, accepted. And another important contribution, which I recall, that in Roorkee, he also developed the, as he was studying metal insulator transition, localization, Anderson localization, CPA, and all those things. we had many opportunity, I think more than once, staying together in one room at ICTP, Abdul Kalam International Center for Theoretical Physics. And we used to cook together. We used to make food out together, and we used to eat together and walk together. We both had separate room in the landlady's house, and it was really very pleasant to spend 1 month. At that time, I was here in Chandigarh as a reader. He was professor there, so we spent together very nice days. I still recall. I also tell you that we used to go movie in the night. In the evening after the class, he used to join us for a movie in the Italian movie. We used to go to see the Italian movie together. So he was very fond of walking and also eating good food. So I have various memories of Professor Joshi. And then often he invited me for lecture and discussion. And whenever he invited me at IIT, at Roorkee University, I always stayed with him in his as a personal guest. And I will stay in his guest room, and Professor Mrs. Joshi, Hema Joshi, she will prepare good food. And every time in the morning, I will go after breakfast, go to the department, and then lunch come and go to the department. So this used to continue. I used to spend about a week with him. I used to give various lectures. Those days I was working on phonon interaction. So he was very much interested in the lattice dynamics of many body aspects of the phonon interaction using the Green's function theory. And my students who were working with me at IIT Bombay, he joined him as a PhD students. So I have very long association with him, and he used to be our examiner in the honor school system here. He used to make question paper for my teaching, and we had great interaction in teaching the condensed matter physics. And his input provided to me regarding these condensed matter physics. Myself, Bankatraman, and S K Joshi used to discuss various aspects of physics, and I was also very often visitor of this DAE symposium, Department of Atomic Energy Solid State Physics Symposium, and Joshi used to go. So was the G. Bankatraman and many other people. I am not able to recall all the names. Some of them I know. Still I remember. So there was very close interaction. What I want to say, that I had very close interaction with Professor Joshi, and I had occasion to work with him in various committees. For example, the committee which I recall is, this was regarding the international collaboration from Israel to India regarding the condensed matter theory problems. So we were to select the person from India who can go to Israel for the study in cooperation studies. And I remember the file. I worked very hard. I work very hard to prepare my decision about each candidate. And when I went there, I was happy to find that his decision and my decision, they were very close, exactly same. So, and I also happened to work with him in the Indore, this interatomic this center, this atomic energy center, at a member of the governing council. So many such committees we worked together. And Punjab University, I should not forget telling about Punjab University, that he gave several memorial lecture at Punjab University. Last he visited was last year, I think. K. Adharam will recall that he visited when we organized the S.N. Bose and Meghna Seher centenary year, and he gave a lecture about Saha ionization equation and how beautifully he explained the Saha ionization equation. And K. also spoke about the S.N. Bose days at Calcutta University, those days. So you can see that he has been a very well-read person in physics, and very gentleman, very nice person, great human being, and he has contributed basic things in the condensed matter physics. One more thing I will mention, he derived the dielectric function of one-dimensional conductors in tight binding approximation exactly, and then he used that, predicted certain anomalies which were found later to be correct by experiment. So he has made many contributions along with his students. Of course, I am not naming the students. The many predictions he has made, and the band theory, for example, with Satyaprakash, two-band model he introduced, because you know these calculations are very difficult. Condensed matter calculations are very difficult. So he very simplified them in a simple models, and this. So I will, with these remarks, I will pay my homage to Joshi, and we miss him a lot. And he was our well-wishers, our helpers, and the Punjab University Physics Department, I think he has helped immensely. I think my junior colleagues may recall him that whenever he came, he gave something to Punjab University. He gave something to Punjab University. And I think with this remark, it's better that I close, that time is probably short. So that's all. This is my greatest homage to Professor Joshi. And the deepest condolence, and this should be recorded in the proceeding and sent to Mrs. Joshi. That's my request.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion, Professor Pathak. Thank you very much for your remarks. And may I now request Professor Satyaprakash to say a few words? Professor Satyaprakash.
Hello, are you listening me?
Yes, yes.
Say, it's a very emotional moment that we are together to pay our tributes to a great teacher, a great scientist, a great human being, Professor S K Joshi. Are you listening? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
So, a lot of things have been said by the earlier speakers about his scientific contribution, his personal contribution, his contribution to the institutions, and as a whole for the development of science for this country. I will share my personal views. First of all, he was a great teacher. It was a very interesting memory. I was in MSc too, and I offered the, I was given the X-ray special paper. So he was in charge of the X-ray spectroscopy laboratory, and it was the month of July and August. So we were given the experiment to find out the atomic spectra of sodium chloride. So he was my supervisor. We used to put the sodium chloride crystal on the goniometer head, and then the X-ray machine used to run for many days. And we were continuously observing each and every day from after 12 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And after 6 or 7 days, he comes and then we open the film. We find that there is nothing. So he will come and he will laugh. Satyaprakash ji, kya hua? Kuch nahi aaya. And what was happening? Why it was because of the humidity, the sodium chloride crystal used to get evaporate. So this was very interesting, but he never asked anything. So this repeated experiments where we were doing, and it took a lot of time. And to complete this experiment, each and every time he will come, he will discuss, and he encouraged. He taught us a lesson that this happens in life. That whatever you try to do, it doesn't comes exactly in the at the same time. You have to make again and again, again and again, the continuous effort, and then you will get the result. This was the first lesson I learned from my great teacher. Then I had an opportunity to work with him for my PhD degree, and he motivated me. As I joined, actually, there was a difficult time because there was nothing, no computing facilities and nothing like that. So there was only one computing polybaty machine in the department, and we used to compute day and night. So we used to work all the night there. We used to be there, and after working hard for 1 year, then our paper was accepted for publication in physical review. So it was a great moment. He encouraged me a lot. Then he inspired me for a quality physics work. That was his motto, that we should do the best physics, we should do the best science. And then he went abroad, and then he came to Roorkee, and I joined with him. There we started a very exhaustive work. We used to go for computing the TIFR, He was very supporting. He was very helpful and very encouraging. So this happened after that I left Roorkee. I had a very close relation, a family relation, a teacher relation. And my last meeting was with him in the month of first week of March. So very emotional moment. When I went there, he was not well and he was little sleepy. I waited for some time and Mr. Joshi was also there. When he got up, then I joined with him. He just took my hand and then I felt that this is a very difficult moment. We start some happy moments of our life. One of the event was that when we were going to his marriage, then we had to walk for 14 kilometers and this was raining all dark and the uh, we could not move and then we went to somebody's house and we stayed there for the whole night. They gave us the food. Next day we went to his home and then next day it was marriage. Then we came back and again went back. Very nice people, very nice family, very nice humble background, but very difficult situation. So that was a great family meeting. And since then, I had a very continuous relation with him. Then we shared very emotional moments with him for half an hour, and it was difficult to say, explain that moment. A great human being, a great teacher, a great scientist, and we pay our tribute to him. So let us follow him. Let us follow the path shown by him. He is my great teacher. He is my elder brother. Has been and still we have the same relation. With these words, I pay my sincere tribute to him, and I have nothing more to say. He's a great man. I feel emotional about this moment. I'm I'm really that. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Satyaprakash, that you were able to join us and for that very humane, description of your meetings with Professor Joshi. I would now request Professor Ishwar Singh from IIT Ropar, who has been working at IIT Roorkee. I believe he is another of the earliest students of Professor Joshi and has also had the privilege of being his colleague at IIT Roorkee. Professor Ishwar Singh.
Hello, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Dear colleagues, we have gathered today afternoon to pay our tribute, homage to the great person and scientist, Professor Joshi. His greatness and his work is known everywhere, and all of us know about it. I will speak a bit about my personal reminiscence, and especially the early days I joined Professor Joshi's group. Before joining Professor Joshi's group, I was working in National Physical Laboratory since 1969, and I heard his lectures in 1971 March in Delhi University in connection with a workshop on solid state physics there. A month-long workshop on various topics of solid state physics. Professor Joshi's lectures were on lattice dynamics, and there were very many other professors like Professor C K Majumdar, Professor S S Jha, Professor J Mehanti. All stalwarts of that time were giving their lectures there, and I was able to attend those lectures, though I was working on a experimental topic in National Physical Laboratory. So since that time, I thought that because my work in National Physical Laboratory in X-ray crystallography was not going on well because my guide had left for USA, and therefore I was going to change to some other topic and to some other place. So I contacted Professor Joshi, and I exactly remember it was in May 1971 that I went to Roorkee. I took a bus right in the morning at 4 a.m. and reached there around 10 o'clock. It was Sunday and Professor Joshi was in his office because I met his students. His students, research scholars, were also present there, and they told that we all come on Sunday. We don't have any holiday on Sunday. So I went to Professor Joshi, and I still remember that after listening my whole conversation whole concern, he suggested that I should not leave the job of NPL because I was in a job, and there at that time it used to be the nomenclature there were junior scientific officer, senior scientific officer, and so on. It was not scientist A, B, C, D. So he suggested that I should not leave NPL and should not go to a CSER fellowship. But I insisted, and therefore he suggested that I come next week and come prepared. I will have to go to the blackboard. And therefore the next week I came and I went to the blackboard. Am I audible? All of you are listening me?
Yes.
Hello? Is it audible? Hello?
Yes, you are. You are audible.
Am I audible to all?
Yes, yes, we can listen to you
Okay,
nicely.
thank you. So, the very next Sunday, I went there again to his office and then to the blackboard, and then he had half an hour question answer session. And only then, after he also cautioned me that you may have to spend 4-5 years in PhD and then 3-4 years in postdoc. Only then you will be able to get a job. And you are having a job right now, so you again think about it and should not leave that job. But I was adamant to leave that and to join, and therefore in such condition I joined him. And I still appreciate his concern that he was so much worried as to he will have to spend 7-8 years after leaving a job, and the job market at that time was not very good. So he cautioned me many times before I left NPL. So that way, he was so much humane in everything. And then I joined in January 1972 and worked on the topic of strongly correlated systems. I insisted that I should work on lattice dynamics, but he said that there is a still more new topic on strongly correlated systems. And his earlier student, Dr. Ram Kishore, had already completed his PhD on this topic. And therefore, he asked me to work on this topic of strongly correlated systems, Hubbard model, and metal insulator transition. So I completed my PhD in 1976 on itinerant ferromagnetism and metal insulator transition. And then he suggested that I should go for postdoc, and only then I should come back and search for a job. But it so happened that there were jobs in University of Roorkee itself, and I applied, and I was selected there. And therefore, then I joined the faculty in 1977 March. I have had so much interaction and his blessings throughout my research career and teaching career. And I still remember that he used to say two things which I still remember. And the one is that he made a statement that when he was working in Allahabad University, some senior professor was working on a difficult topic, and he convinced himself that when he can do such work and can get published papers in good journals on such a difficult topic, why can't I? So why can't I? He said we should always question this to ourselves and suggest to ourselves that why can't I? And the second thing which he told, and he used to tell it, that he should pay some attention to contribute to the towards the downtrodden students, and that way it was on his inspiration and suggestions that when I was in the faculty in University of Roorkee, I joined NSSS in the university itself, and then the student, then the children of D class employee, we used to instruct them in the evening 1 hour in the evening. So 1 hour in the evening, 6 to 7. The university was kind enough to allot one lecture hall to those students, and I, along with research scholars and MSc students, used to go to teach those students. Those children were from class 6 to class 11. All of them were sitting in the same hall, and we were 5-6 teachers, instructors. We had decided our subjects, and therefore we used to do this quite a lot. And I used to go to a Adarsh Bal Niketan school to give lectures on some science topics in 11th, 12th class, and also to St. Gabriel School. So that way, that aspect, and I'm still continuing the same thing at Roper. I used to go to schools and colleges for lectures. So Professor Joshi, being such a great scientist and a great person, he used to tell such things which we could do at practical level. I really miss him so much, and I'm so much emotionally attached with him because my whole life changed after I joined Roorkee in his research group. I pay my homage and my respect to a departed soul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ishwar Singh. I
Thank you.
will now request Professor V.C. Sani to say a few words. Just a very brief introduction. I can see many of my research scholars here. Professor V.C. Sani has been at BARC, and he is one of the top physicists of this country. He has known Professor Joshi in various capacities. Professor Sani.
Can you hear me, Kaya?
Yes, yes, very clear.
Okay. Well, first of all, I must pay my respects to Professor Joshi. He was one of the most amicable personalities. I can't recall anybody else, although my first interaction with him goes back to 1967. And that was the time when he had just returned from California after his postdoc fellowship. At the Nuclear Physics and Solid-State Physics Symposium at IIT Kanpur, Joshi was always feared a little bit. Main reason was he was uncompromising. He would ask you difficult questions, and the format of the symposium used to be very different. Not like having a lot of poster sessions. Most of the time, there were oral presentations. And Professor Joshi, he lived physics. He breathed physics. He asked difficult questions. But to a young person, remember, in 1967, Joshi was just 32. At that time, I was 22. And of course, we sort of were awed by his questioning people. Yet, I found he was extremely affectionate and gracious. Even if you didn't know something, I remember I had to present a paper in which Professor Joshi was the chair. And naturally, for some time, I was a little scared. But at the end, when he gave me an uptake, I think that was a big testimonial to me. Thereafter, Joshi's, I should share one story with you. See, Joshi, as a student at Allahabad, apparently once met Professor Ramana when Ramana had gone on either a weekend or a holiday or whatever, and he found late in the evening, there is a young man who is working. Remember that I worked in the area of lattice dynamics, and probably that was also one of Joshi's interests. So how come that even on a holiday or something, this young man is working? So Ramana actually, in a way, had great love for Joshiji. That built up a relationship between Professor Joshi and I would say DAE. So thereafter, in 1968, when the symposium at Roorkee was being organized again, Joshiji was our host. I remember that in 1973, when he ran a famous summer institute, which was, a draw of all the Indian condensed matter physicists who was present there. It was only because of Joshiji's personality. And some of the people, Satya Prakash, Ishwar Singh, and so on, they were all there at that time working for their PhD. I think it will be very hard to find another person who was honest in terms of making a judgment of people, yet extremely charitable and not unnecessarily pulling down people, which is what was a hallmark of his personality. In fact, he was my PhD examiner when I was a student of P.K. Iyengar, and I still have vivid memory of Joshi and P.K. Iyengar grilling me a little bit, but at the end, my PhD was done. I have had a great association with Joshiji, although from a distance, but I should share one more story with you. In 2005, are you able to hear me or?
Yes, yes. You are very audible.
Okay, in 2005, Joshi ji, I had actually by that time also taken the responsibility after Bhavalkar retired in Indore. And we had, by December 2005, we had actually made Indus 2 ring operational. So I had decided at that time that on the Foundation Day function, I should get luminaries from outside the DAE family. I invited Joshi ji in 2006. February used to be our Foundation Day function. Joshi ji came, he saw, by that time he had circulated the beam, seen at least the first synchrotron light. That was a good investment for me because a few years after I retired, apparently there was a meeting in Delhi and people were trying to say, no, we should have acquire another synchrotron and so on. Joshi ji was amongst the people supervising. He said, friends, first go see what they have built at Indore. It is not a small toy you can purchase from somebody. And in fact, my successor told me, Joshi ji saved the day for us at Indore. Today, fortunately, that number of beamlines are working beautifully, and Joshi ji would have been proud and he would have given me a second uptake for whatever we have done. My sincere apologies that I couldn't meet him, although I did attempt a few times when I was at National Physical Laboratory. But I think we are going to sorely miss him. His wisdom, his generosity, and above all, his affectionate manner in which he always encouraged all of us. Thank you, Kia.
Thank you. I'm very touched that you made it today. Thank you again. So next, may I request Professor Dilip Kanhere. Kanhere, I'm sure my group will be very happy to meet you. You have been kind to them by assisting us with computation. So Professor Kanhere is from Pune University, and he is another person with a long association with Professor Joshi. Kanhere.
Thanks, Kia. Professor S K Joshi, or from student days, Kia will recall, we used to call him Joshi ji, so affectionate. We knew of him in our PhD days, that is middle of 70s, as one of the leading condensed matter physicists from Roorkee University. Almost all or most of his PhD students and postdoc used to come to IIT Kanpur, and then we used to hear about how clear his physics is and how worthy his guideship was. My personal association with Joshi started when I received, he was my PhD thesis examiner, and T.V. Ramakrishnan was conducting an exam because Professor Singru was abroad. So there was one cryptic comment which was shown to me by TVR saying that this is the one you should focus on. I started giving my presentation, and this is where I came to know of both the aspects of Joshi ji. He was very gentle, the gentle part of his aspect, very considerate, very humane, and very stricter part of his, firm part of his aspect when it comes to physics. After a few minutes of my presentation, he said, Kanhere, it was not Kanhere always, it was always Kanhere. Kanhere, stop. I don't want to listen to rest of your presentation unless you answer my question number 1. The meeting there, the students sitting got very tense. The question number 1 related to nickel majority bands. And he said, I want to see these bands in your thesis. Your chapter is on nickel. I don't see these bands. How come? So I showed him where the bands are and the entire discussion on majority bands. And then it took a fraction of a second for him to say, oh, yes, they are there and they are correct and your discussion is very good. And then he murmured, saying that these things should not be in the appendix. They should have been in the main thesis chapter. And then go ahead. Then everything was very relaxed. It was very friendly. And the thesis, of course, defense went through properly. He grilled us in a very nice fashion. I'm sure Professor Sani just mentioned it. And everything went through. Then on, the thing I must mention is by that time, condensed matter group of Roorkee University was one of the leading and major group internationally known. The characteristic was, it was not just the analytical work which was famous, but he also made, remember, this was the time in early 70s where doing computation was not considered prestigious. Today's situation is other way around. If you don't know how to compute on computer, you are not considered. He made computational condensed matter physics very respectable. And most of us used to look at his papers, the way he interprets results, the way output, and in fact, many of the discussions with him, he used to make it clear that physics is not in numbers, not in output, but it is in interpreting, building models, doing computation, and interpreting it correctly. And many of his papers were actually landmark in this. So most of us considered his as our mentors who do computational physics even now. Later on, I came to know of his very gentle and very considerate part in many of the meetings when he used to be chairman in some selection committees as well as evaluation committees. And he was very kind, listening to others, giving chance to everyone else, and then giving his opinion in a very, very unoffensive and nice fashion. I think it's a great loss to all of us who look towards him as our mentor in doing physics. I express my deepest condolences and end my homage to Joshi ji.
Thank you, Kanere. I would now request Professor Subroto Ray, another person like us who has not been a research scholar with Professor Joshi, but interacted with him as a student, as a PhD student. And Professor Ray later on joined as faculty in Roorkee University. So therefore was also a colleague and I believe a personal friend. Professor Subroto Ray. Subroto Ray, please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes, now we are.
In fact, I was really puzzled when Kya asked me that I had to tell something about Professor Joshi. There are lots of memories, you know, because of the fact that before that, myself, Kya, Dharamveer, we were all PhD students of T.V. Ramakrishnan, and TV had a very great relation with Professor Joshi. And so, and we have seen him different conferences, different winter schools, and in lectures in IIT Kanpur. Particularly comes to my mind a winter school on disordered solid in Delhi University, where Professor Joshi gave a lot of lectures. There were a lot of people from abroad, Zaiman, Economo, and all that. And we used to stay in the same hostel, and we had an interesting interaction with Professor Joshi all the time. And he was very affectionate to us particularly because he considered TVS students his students as well. So when I joined Roorkee, so obviously I used to consider him my teacher, so I went to meet him. He was very happy. And subsequently, you know, on many occasions, I had to meet him, and you see, we developed a very personal relation. In fact, it was like that he can tell anything he likes to me, and I can tell similarly anything I like about him or I dislike about him. In fact, I used to be a great critic when he was there in various administrative capacity. But we had a very intimate relation. When it started, you know, first I used to go to Mrs. Joshi. She used to give us nice treats and Professor Joshi was not there. So we'll tell lots of things about what Professor Joshi has done. And then Professor Joshi one day caught me He told, what are you doing? Do you want to spoil my family relation? Why do you go and tell everything in the institute to your Bhabiji? So we had great laugh. But in any case, he was extremely affectionate, and I had very intimate personal relation with the whole family, although not so much with the children because they used to remain away, but with the family. And so his loss is almost like a personal loss. But that apart, you know, I remember one or two things that he said to me, and I thought that they may be useful to the upcoming physics students who are there, I believe, who are listening to it. You know, when he shifted to Delhi, went to administration, before that, different circumstances in Roorkee, you know, he became a little cut off from academics. And he was extremely unhappy about it. So in those days before he left, he told me one day, and that was a beautiful advice, and I think we should pass on to the future generations, that if you are in academics, you are known as an academician, never leave your academic work. Whatever else you do, but never leave connection with academics and always try to do your academic contribution. That may be one of the reasons, you know, I have taken to my heart and I have tried to follow it. Then Professor Joshi went to Delhi and he found Delhi is, you know, as it is, it was not fit for a person from a very simple rural background of Almora and in the humdrum of politics there, you know, and he was fairly, you know, he found him quite out of place. He used to tell me, you cannot do anything here, even for a little simple thing of appointing a kind of a guard. There'll be telephones from 10 cabinet ministers. This is the kind of situation in Delhi. He was very unhappy when he was in NPL, but then one has to continue in life. You know, it's after all, it's not for us to choose the path. As you go, you have to do what you have to do. Then subsequently, he went and became DGCSIR and other things. And he became more convenient with the administration. But somehow I felt even, you know, after he retired from these positions and I had some chit-chats with him, he became really fairly injured in life, you know, because he felt, you know, his soul was being tortured quite a lot, particularly because of the way, you know, the Indian academic politics works. People have misused him. And then, you know, even in administration, when he has gone to selection committees, he found there is very little flexibility. It's almost fait accompli. He was a nice person. He was not the person he could revolt and who could protest. So he had to suffer in silence. But nonetheless, he had to reconcile to we all, you know, reconcile in life and suffer in silence. He also suffered a lot. After that, when he became ill, I had a little chat with him. It was fine. He accepted it and wanted to fight it out. But then what happened, you know, the disease was detected as quite an advanced stage. So nothing much could be done. For the last 10 days before it died, his situation was, you know, very unstable. And finally we lost him. And, you know, I'll always remember him as a teacher and advisor who has helped me to shape up in life. I pay my homage to his memory, and I hope that if there's a next life, he has a better, he enjoys the next life better. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shubhrata. I will now request Professor Arun Grover, former Vice Chancellor, Punjab University, who has spent most of his time at Tata Institute, Professor Grover, to speak. Professor Grover, are you there? Professor Grover? I think he's got up and gone somewhere. So can I ask Professor Vipin Srivastava to say a few words? Vipin has been, Professor Joshi's student parallel to us. And we used to meet in IIT Kanpur as well as that famous summer school in Delhi University. And Vipin is also a very distinguished physicist, Professor Vipin Srivastava. Nahi, ye nahi. Vipin, I'm going to unmute you in a moment. Not yet. Vipin, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Priya, for inviting me to this gathering. I see so many distinguished colleagues here, including Dilip Kanhare and Ishwar Singh Tyagi, and where is Dharamveer? I can't see him now.
He's sitting right behind me.
Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, so Priya and I used to be classmates in Allahabad, and after we finished BSc, Kia moved to IIT Kanpur, and I continued in Allahabad. But by this time, Joshi ji had left Allahabad University. But as when I was finishing my MSc, I was very clear in my mind that I should go and work with him. In fact, Joshi's younger brother, what is his name? He used to be Jagdish. Yeah, he used to be in Allahabad, much senior to us, of course. And through him, I contacted Joshi ji, and soon after finishing my master's, I went to Roorkee. And as Tyagi ji told a short while ago, I was grilled like anybody else. There was an interview, faced some tough questions on quantum mechanics and condensed matter and so on. But finally, he accepted me, and I was very happy and felt very relieved. That was in 71. And I worked on, as Professor Pathak mentioned, a coherent potential approximation to start with, and then various things, including a bit of lattice dynamics in disordered systems and Anderson localization, which I followed, which I pursued even after my PhD. Soon after my PhD in October 1976, I went to Edinburgh for my postdoc. And I had 2 very useful years. And thanks to the thorough grinding that I had gone through Joshi ji's training. And but in those days, job situation was pretty bad. So, but I was determined to come back to India. So came back to Roorkee and slogged for some time, looking for jobs here and there for about a year. And then I landed up in University of Hyderabad, which had just started at that time. And so I continued there till 2017 when I retired. And I still enjoy association with the University of Hyderabad. So that's about me. But as far as Joshi is concerned, a lot has already been said, and I've got many, many anecdotes to share, but I wouldn't take much of your time. And I would say that I had very, very enjoyable, fruitful, and productive 5 years in Roorkee with Joshi ji's under his guidance and supervision. One thing was, see, initially we got the impression that he would be a very conservative person, not so much interested in things other than physics and so on. But I was kind of a different, I was a different kind of a person, as Tyagiji would know. Tyagiji and I used to be, contemporaries. I used my 5 years in Roorkee in doing various other things other than physics as well. Like I did indulge in a lot of drawing and painting. And initially I was a little scared that if Joshiji would come to know about it, he may not like it, because he was more of a very academic person and so on. But then I learned that no, he was pretty open-minded, and he appreciated. In Roorkee, there used to be a hobbies club, and they used to have an annual exhibition where I always exhibited, and he would come and look at my works and appreciate it. That encouraged me so much so that I also indulged in music. And then I was really scared. But he was again very appreciative. He encouraged me to give some performances in the department itself. So on the whole, I realized that even though he had a very modest background, like most of us, and he was very much into studies and research and things, but he did appreciate other things as well. And right. So both Meena and I, my wife was his student when she was doing her MSc from Roorkee. I think all 4 semesters he taught her. And since 15th, when we got the news about his passing away, she is in the Roorkee mode, recalling all those days that she had. We spent in Roorkee with Joshiji as our teacher, and we will miss him. It was a family, and it was a very close-knit family, and he was very affectionate and a very fatherly figure. So with these words, I would like to express my gratitude and homage to our teacher. Thank you very much.
Nice words, Vipin. I now request Professor Arun Grover. Arunji, please give us a few seconds to unmute you. You are connected from 2 places. So, ek on kariye?
Can you hear me?
Right. Yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So Professor Joshi's life journey for me is very inspiring and also very aspirational. I was not his student, nor did anyone from my batch of 1972 from Punjab University went to join Professor Joshi for his PhD at Roorkee. Even though Professor Joshi's 2 students, namely Professor K.C. Sharma and Professor Satyaprakash, were our teachers during the 4 years that we spent at Punjab University doing BSc Honours and MSc Honours from 1968 to 1972. So Professor Joshi for us was someone who was a well-known professor at a very early age. He was a professor at the age of 32, and he had received his Bhatnagar Award in the year 1972, the year I left Chandigarh to join TIFR. So when he received the Bhatnagar Award in 1972, along with Professor S. Chandrasekhar and Professor Govind Swarup of radio astronomy, it was indeed a big news in TIFR. Remember at that, by 1972, even Professor Virendra Singh, who was one of the stars of the theoretical physics group of TIFR, Professor Chanchal Majumdar, Professor Jha,
Yeah. Hello, Professor Grover? Professor Grover, we can't hear you. एक और जगह थे. So, hello. Okay, we will keep trying to connect with Professor Grover. Meanwhile, yes, Professor Grover.
So, आपको घर पे हो?
नहीं, ये तो कुछ और. ये सानी सा तो म्यूट करो, सानी.
चलो नेक्स्ट
नहीं, मैं बोलूं. So allow me. Hello. Am I? Okay. So allow me to read out a message I have received from Professor TV Ramakrishnan. So are you audible? Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So TVR says, I feel a sense of personal loss, as if an elder brother has passed away in the demise of Professor S K Joshi. For physicists of the generation that started its professional career in India in the 60s and 70s of the last century, Joshi ji was a great exemplar. He was, unusually for any generation, both a personal and professional example. His personal qualities of genuine goodness that cannot be faked, his smiling, gentle, and extremely intelligent actions and reactions that came out of that often tentative sounding, non-assertive, but clear-headed and insightful personality were a personal ideal. He worked hard and was very open-minded. Amazingly, among people who grew up in the same academic milieu, he was non-hierarchical, broke away and explored new things, not recycled versions of the PhD experience. He was entirely self-made and came up the hard way. I know of the determination and enthusiasm with which he overcame difficulties, positive and non-embittered in spirit. And these were not advertised. He did not blow his trumpet. He built up the physics department of Roorkee University, which is at present IIT Roorkee, from a service department of what was in essence still the century-old Thomason College of Civil Engineering to an active research department of quality. Areas unheard of as research fields in physics, for example, disordered systems and alloys, strong correlations, an inspirational research culture where he led by example, a generation of admiring mentees who later transmitted these attitudes were some of the legacies of that period, 1967 to 1986. He was, of course, a natural choice as an administrator of science in the country. This he did well for a decade or so in Delhi. He also directed in his unassuming but knowledgeable and academically exacting way the course of a large number of institutions till his 80s. I am happy there was such a person in the physics world of India, and I'm happy that I knew. This is from T.V. Ramakrishnan. Thank you. No, Professor Grover, can we continue?
Where is Grover? Please ask him.
Professor Grover, are you there? Can you hear us? Professor Grover, ये अच्छा ये वही है मैं फोन कर
अच्छा आप दूसरों को बताओ
आप हैं लास्ट
मैं has everyone finished
we wait for Dr. Yes, Dr. Grover. No, we have unmuted you, but we can't hear you. We have unmuted you on the same device. So what I'll do is, okay, go to the other device, please. We are connecting with Professor Grover. There is just one more speaker. Dharamveer will briefly share after Professor Grover some interactions he has had with Professor Joshi as an administrator. Grover को देखिए. We have found the second connection of Professor Grover, but there is still no voice.
He has not joined the audio.
He has not joined. Yes,
no.
yes, unmute. Hello, Professor
Can you
Grover.
hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear. Yes, please continue.
So should I start from the beginning? Should I
What
start
was-
from the beginning?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry for the mess at my end, but let me say that Professor Joshi, for my generation of people, is someone who is an example of a good student born in pre-independent India, who received his formal university education in post-independent India in one of the prestigious departments of physics at that time, namely the University of Allahabad Department of Physics, which was set up by none other than Professor Meghnad Saha. When Professor Joshi was at Allahabad, of course, we all know that he topped the MSc examination and he was offered a lecturership, as was a tradition at that time for the toppers. And he chose to work for his PhD with Professor K. Banerjee, Kardeshwar Banerjee. Kardeshwar Banerjee, okay, was Mahendralal Sarkar professor at Calcutta before he had moved to Allahabad, okay, for a period of 7 years. So Professor Joshi starts his PhD with someone who was not only a great crystallographer of his time, but who was, in addition to being a great experimenter, was also a theoretician of concurrently, who wanted to understand everything that the X-ray diffraction can give us. So the diffuse X-ray scattering obviously can tell a lot about the crystal dynamics, about solid state physics properties, force constants, etc., etc. So Professor Joshi was trained in this kind of a way that he always had his eyes on numbers, experimental numbers, okay, wide, crunching out things based on good theory. So it is with that background, after finishing his PhD, he goes to University of Riverside. Okay, I understand, at the initiative of Professor T.P. Das, who was a faculty member at Riverside, assistant professor and associate professor. So it is at Riverside that Professor Joshi came in contact with A.K. Rajgopal, who was also a postdoc of Joseph Callaway at Riverside. And Professor A.K. Rajgopal also had his PhD in lattice dynamics as a student of Professor R. Srinivasan at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Rajgopal has written his thesis on lattice dynamics of perovskite structures, namely lattice dynamics of Shantian titanium. So here is Joshi ji, one postdoc, another postdoc in a university, and they are learning from each other. So during his stay at Riverside, Professor Joshi goes to meet Professor Kundan Singh Singhvi, and there he is encouraged to start writing this article for the Solid State Physics Volume 22, which is the lattice dynamics of metals. Kundan Singh Singhvi and L.S. Kothari had written a chapter in the Solid State Physics Volume 8. So that pair, Singhvi and Kothari, had written this chapter in Volume 8, and Rajgopal and Professor Joshi started to write this very beautiful chapter in Volume 22, Lattice Dynamics of Metals, which all MSc students are introduced to read. For instance, Professor Pathak had asked when we were MSc students to read through first few pages of that Volume 22 article, because it tells you what all can you extract from studying X-ray scattering, neutron scattering, etc., etc. So Professor Joshi returns to Roorkee. He wrote only 2 papers with Rajgopal. One, a physics letters paper, which was lattice dynamics of a model ferromagnet, and then this review article. So he comes back and he received his Bhatnagar Award in the year 72. Year 72 was a year when I joined the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research for my PhD. Rajgopal was already there, and Professor Joshi's award, Bhatnagar Award, made a big splash in TIFR, because that year 3 eminent physicists of our times received the Bhatnagar Award. Joshi, Professor S. Chandrasekhar of liquid crystals, who became a fellow of the Royal Society, and also Professor Govind Swarup, the builder of radio telescopes in India, who also became the fellow of the Royal Society. Professor Virendra Singh got his Bhatnagar Award from TIFR a year later. The only theorist earlier than Professor Joshi who was a Bhatnagar awardee was Professor A.N. Mitra from Delhi University. And Professor A.N. Mitra was a very eminent condensed matter, eminent theoretical physicist who had worked with Hans Bethe and Freeman Dyson in America during his postdoc. He incidentally was also trained for his PhD in India. So both Professor A.N. Mitra, Professor Joshi are, as I said earlier, persons who received their formal education in India, did their PhDs in India, went abroad for a brief while, but their entire life is spent in building the academics in India, building the centers of research in India. So Professor Joshi, as I see it, is a role model for all good students at school who have a desire to take up research in physics, chemistry, or whatever, and by virtue of sheer merit and hard work, reach to the very top, okay, and contribute to building India. Professor Joshi, as we all know, became, in the course of his life, president of the Indian National Science Academy, Delhi, the president of the Allahabad Academy, the vice president of the Bangalore Academy. He was president of the Indian Physics Association. He was a president of the Material Science Society of India. And after he was a DG of CSR. He was also the director of NPL. And he was very proud to be the director of NPL when he was made it, because after K.S. Krishnan, and Krishnan was someone who was from the same generation as his thesis advisor. Krishnan was also a student of C.V. Raman. K. Banerjee was also a student of C.V. Raman, and they were roughly the students of C.V. Raman at the same time, born in 1898 and 1900 respectively. So Professor Joshi then when he got elevated to the DG CSR, he assumed a much larger role for himself, and that is that, and after he relinquished the DG-ship, he influenced the academics in India in a very, very major way. He enjoyed the confidence of all the prime ministers of India. He is the one who set up for DRDO how the scientists should be reviewed. All that is a contribution of Professor S K Joshi. He was member of the committees, okay, which recommended the new IIT should come up. There should be ISERs in India. All this is Professor Joshi's contribution. And of course, he could make this contribution because he was a very affable man. He could get along with people very easily. He could inspire people. And I learned from Dharamveer ji that he was chairman of the board of governors of IIT Roorkee at a time when IIT Roorkee made a transition from a university to IIT. And it's that experience Professor Joshi used to enable Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, which was an autonomous institute, a national lab, get converted from a national lab to a university. So Professor Joshi's contributions to Indian academics are enormous, phenomenal, and these are contributions which would parallel a contribution of a titan, like Professor Yashpal. And I would not hesitate to say, even parallel contributions or influence of that of Professor C.N. Rao into Indian science. Professor Joshi was honored greatly. He received his Padma Bhushan in addition to various other honors, and he was very proud that the Banaras Hindu University chose to honor him with their honoris causa degree. I had an occasion to meet him very frequently during last 3 years. My last meeting was with him just exactly 1 year ago on the World Meteorological Day, 20th May. Today is a World Meteorological Day, and it is being celebrated in NPL as an occasion when India is wanting to re-involve itself, okay, with the theme Make in India. He was last as a chairman of NABL, which accredits all the products from India, all the industries from India, and this agenda of Joshi ji is being carried forward by the present director of NPL India. I can say a lot more about Joshi ji, but I received his affection. I received encouragement from him all his life. In fact, I had given my first invited talk at his invitation at University of Roorkee in the year 1983. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arunji. That was a very nice speech on your part. Professor K.C. Sharma, are you still there? K.C. Sharma, हाँ जी, आप बोलेंगे 2 मिनट के लिए 2 शब्द. हाँ जी, हाँ,
2 मिनट जरूर बोलूंगा.
Please go ahead.
सभी को बहुत बहुत नमस्कार. It is an emotional moment, and I give my deep respect to Professor Joshi, my ultimate guru in academics. स्मृतियां बहुत हैं, लेकिन शब्द बहुत कम. प्रोफेसर जोशी जी का व्यक्तित्व बहुत असाधारण, दैवीय और युगदृष्टा का, आत्मनिर्भर भारत बनाने का स्वप्न साकार करने का व्यस्त रहा. सिंपल लिविंग और हाई थिंकिंग के मूर्त रूप. उनके पास पहुंचकर सभी समस्याओं का समाधान मिलता था, शांति भी मिलती थी. उस दैवीय प्रतिभा में हम सभी को भाई जैसा स्नेह मिला. प्रोफेसर जोशी का मार्गदर्शन व आशीर्वाद हमेशा हम लोगों को मिलता रहा, चाहे वो इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी में थे, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कैलिफोर्निया रिवर साइड में थे, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ रुड़की में थे, या एनपीएल न्यू दिल्ली में. 60s में इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी का जो एटमॉस्फेयर था वो बहुत जीवंत रहा. आखिर प्रोफेसर के एस कृष्णन, एम एस शाह, आदि बड़े बड़े वैज्ञानिक, अजीत राम वर्मा, प्रोफेसर महांती, प्रोफेसर डी एस कोठारी, प्रोफेसर के एस सिंघवी का सबका आशीर्वाद रहा. हम सभी विद्यार्थियों का जो एक्सपोजर था वो इसी वजह से बहुत अच्छा रहा, और अल्टीमेट एक्सपोजर जो था वो इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ सॉलिड स्टेट फिजिक्स इन बॉम्बे जो कि 1965 में ऑर्गेनाइज हुई थी, उसमें हुआ। ध्यान आ रहा है इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी का जो माहौल था फिजिक्स डिपार्टमेंट का, इतना जीवंत था कि लेट नाइट सिटिंग बहुत ही विचित्र थी। पहली बार हमने देखा कि हार्डवर्क कितना कैसा होता है। रात भर काम करते थे, प्रोफेसर जोशी जी भी रात भर बैठे रहते थे, हमें पता ही नहीं चलता था वो कब तक बैठे हैं। तो ये बहुत ही हार्डवर्क कैसे होता है, ये उन्होंने हमें बहुत सिखाया। डिपार्टमेंट की एक बहुत विचित्र सी बात रही कि जो भी लेटेस्ट डेवलपमेंट्स होते थे वो स्टूडेंट्स लेवल पर एमएससी में जल्दी से जल्दी पहुंचाए जाते थे। एक एग्जांपल हमें ध्यान आ रही है कि बीसीएस थ्योरी 57 दिसंबर में प्रपोज हुई, दिसंबर में पेपर आया और 58-59 में एमएससी स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ा दिया गया। सो ये लेटेस्ट डेवलपमेंट हमेशा स्टूडेंट्स तक पहुंचाने की कोशिश होती थी। मैं स्वयं को बहुत भाग्यशाली समझता हूं कि इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी में एडमिशन मिला और 1961 में प्रोफेसर जोशी ने हमें रिसर्च स्कॉलर्स के रूप में स्वीकार किया। हमारे इस ग्रुप में के शर्मा और मैं, ये दो लोग थ्योरी में थे। एक्सपेरिमेंटल फिजिक्स में वीएमएस कश्यप और केपी तिवारी रहे। थ्योरी में जो एम्फेसिस था वो लेटेस्ट डायनेमिक्स में था, इलेक्ट्रिकल एंड थर्मल प्रॉपर्टीज पर ज्यादा रहा। 1963-64 में प्रोफेसर टी टोया, वो लेटेस्ट डायनेमिक्स में ही काम करते थे, जापान से उन्होंने विजिट किया और उस समय हमारे एक बहुत वरिष्ठ मैथमेटिशियन श्री नरेंद्र सिंह ने हमारे ग्रुप को ज्वाइन किया। ये पहला बैच था। 1964 में सत्यप्रकाश जी हमारे ग्रुप में आए, तो ये समय बहुत अच्छा आनंददायक बीता। इसी समय 1964 इसी समय प्रोफेसर टीपी दास का आगमन हुआ और यहाँ पर एनर्जी बैंड स्ट्रक्चर कैलकुलेशन के बारे में सोचना शुरू किया गया। 1965 में
1:30 बजने वाले
जोशी जी रिवर साइड पहुंच गए। हमारा जो वाइवा था वो उनकी गैरहाजिरी में हुआ। उस समय श्री राजेंद्र सिंह जी हमारे सुपरवाइजर थे।
10 मिनट में हो जाएगा।
नहीं अभी तो नहीं होगा, इन्होंने तो extend कर दिया।
1960 बाद में जब रिवर साइड में थे तो एक उनको विस्तार मिला रिसर्च में, और 2 साल के बाद जब वापस आए तो रुड़की में उस विस्तार का प्रकटीकरण रुड़की में हुआ। 1968 में रुड़की यूनिवर्सिटी में बहुत सारे प्रोग्राम्स हुए। जो अनफिनिश्ड प्रोग्राम इलाहाबाद के थे वो पूरे हुए, जैसे लेटेस्ट डायनेमिक्स का था, एनर्जी बैंड स्ट्रक्चर कैलकुलेशन का था। उसके अलावा भी कोरिलेशन प्रॉब्लम, हुब्बार्ड मॉडल और एंडरसन मॉडल में काम शुरू हुआ। रामकिशोर जी ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया था। हैवी फर्मियन सिस्टम्स, स्ट्रांगली कोरिलेटेड सिस्टम में त्यागी जी ने काम किया था। इंसुलेटेड मेटल ट्रांजिशन में भी काम हुआ। एटॉमिक कोलिजन्स में श्री नरेश चंद्र, डॉक्टर नरेश चंद्र पता नहीं है कि नहीं यहाँ पर, उन्होंने काम किया। और उसके बाद एनपीएल में आ गए। एनपीएल में हाई टेम्परेचर सुपरकंडक्टर्स और इलेक्ट्रॉन ट्रांसपोर्ट इन क्वांटम डॉट्स का काम शुरू हुआ। जोशी से हमें प्रेरणा हमेशा मिलती रही और इसी कोरिलेशन प्रॉब्लम को हाई टेम्परेचर सुपरकंडक्टिविटी और हैवी फर्मियन सिस्टम्स पर काम करने के लिए हमको एनकरेज किया। With these words, I really offer my sincere, heartful, and tearful tributes to Guruji Prof Joshi. May his pious soul rest in peace in God's heavenly abode, and may God give enough courage and strength to the family members, Bhabivi, Sanjay Joshi, and others. We will miss him a lot. Thank you.
धन्यवाद शर्मा जी, आपने प्रोफेसर जोशी के साथ बिताए गए आपके अमूल्य क्षणों के बारे में आपने हमारे साथ साझा किया, इसके लिए पुनः धन्यवाद। और अब अंतिम स्पीकर श्री धर्मवीर, जो कि इस सोसाइटी के प्रेसिडेंट हैं, वो जोशी जी के साथ बिताए गए कुछ समय के बारे में बताएंगे।
Namaskar. I had met Professor Joshi a couple of times when I was research scholars at IIT Kanpur during 71 to 73. And Professor Ramakrishnan was my supervisor. And he always encouraged me to meet distinguished people like the professor. And I was very happy that whenever I met, he was very nice, very educative, and suggested many things. After leaving the research and joining the IS, I maintained my interest in research and maintained interest in science and technology mainly because of my wife, K. Dharamveer. And whenever I passed through Roorkee, I met him. And few of my contemporaries who became professors or faculty at the Roorkee University. But greater interaction with Joshi came much later in 2001. When when University of Roorkee got converted into IIT Roorkee, and I was Technical Education Secretary in Haryana. Earlier, Haryana was linked with Delhi IIT, but after the conversion of University of Roorkee into IIT Roorkee, the state of Haryana got linked with this institute. So as such, I became member of the governing council, governing body of the IIT Roorkee. And that was the most difficult phase that perhaps even professor did not think that it would happen. So I happened to be at that stage. And then I realized the difficulty of how a university structure, which has lot many rigidities, would get converted into a flexible IIT system. And faculty was just not prepared to handle this. And they were just trying to work in the watertight compartment. There were departments like Department of Water Resources, Department of Irrigation, Department of this. There were at least 5-6 departments dealing with the water. So we said, why don't you club and make a center of water resources or something like that? So synergize. Interdisciplinary research was least understood or appreciated or even promoted at the university level. So at that time, when we started restructuring the statutes and orders governing the academics and administration, I started taking part, and that brought me close to him. And we became very good friends. And whenever the academic council or the governing body used to take place, governing council, I would attend. As time passed, I moved on, and he settled at Gurgaon. And during that time, I always thought of visiting him, and I visited him a couple of times. He had some problems of adjustment at Gurgaon, some problems which we tried to resolve. But he was a very nice person, very decent human being. While he was visiting Chandigarh, he attended my son's wedding. Very happy. I still have a photograph with him. And I always cherished memory of spending time with him or learning many things from him. And when he moved to NPL, when he was director in NPL, I had met him as Science and Technology Secretary. And we tried to do something jointly at Faridabad, Gurgaon, and Samalka. Samalka has lot many tin and metal industries, used to have. So we're trying to revive that place. So we started working with the NPL, whether we can do or we can attach some of these small industries with NPL, if they want to do anything with the metallurgical or tin or other metal engineering or research or development activities. So I pay my homage to Professor Joshi, and I feel that he was one of the leading scientists not only scientist, but scientific administrator who looked beyond what we would think of. And he was truly trying to move India to the next generation. And he has trained people like most of you, or he has interacted with most of you. And you are the living example of the legacy of that Professor Joshi left behind. And I truly value his contribution to India, to us, to every one of us. Thank you very much. And I'm grateful to all of you for attending this meeting to offer prayers as well as remembering him in variety of forms of his qualities and contribution to our country. Thank you. Jai Hind.
So with this, we come to the conclusion of this meeting. And we may conclude by saying that we pledge to carry forward our work in the spirit inculcated by Professor S K Joshi. And as some of you have suggested, we shall convey the gist of this meeting to the family of Professor S K Joshi. तो क्योंकि चैट में हमें और कोई मैसेज नहीं मिले हैं, इसलिए इस मीटिंग को हम यहीं पे खत्म करते हैं। एक बार और आप सबको धन्यवाद और प्रोफेसर जोशी को आंतरिक श्रद्धांजलि के साथ हम इस मीटिंग को यहीं समाप्त करते हैं। धन्यवाद। सब लोग अपना ख्याल रखिए। थैंक यू एंड बाय।